this is about just what the title said. You know, your diabetes should not control you. It's you who's in charge. And often, whether you have diabetes, whether you want to prevent diabetes, whether you have another health condition, often our emotions get in the way. And let's say you've just had a diagnosis of a health condition. There's maybe some fear, maybe some anger, some confusion. You're uncertain about what the future holds. You're not sure what to eat. You don't know whether you can go out. Certainly with diabetes, you might think, am I allowed sugar? Am I not allowed sugar? Can I eat my traditional foods? So there is so much uncertainty with any diagnosis, and that can feel like a loss of control. But actually, you are in charge. You are actually your best doctor. And the choices that you make and the thinking behind what you're going to be doing about your condition can really have an impact on how empowered you feel, how valued you feel, how in control you feel of any condition. And here today, we're particularly talking about diabetes. So I would like to go through, things like, why are we so prone to diabetes within our community? What can we do about it in terms of food? Why those certain foods are helpful or some foods are not helpful? And I'll end with a little bit about our culture, because I think that, there's something so rich and beautiful about the South Asian culture. And I think there's so much to embrace. And sometimes we need to temper parts of it when it comes to food. So I'd like to start with that agenda by explaining why, and I'm sure you already know this. Sorry, is everybody able to, I don't know if you're able to put everyone on mute. That would be great. Thank you. So first of all, why South Asians? Why are we so prone to getting diabetes, particularly type 2 diabetes, or even insulin requiring type 2 diabetes? Well, genetically, we are just more predisposed. We are more likely because of our genes. Nothing you can do about that. But what we can do something about, what we can control, if you like, is our lifestyle behaviors. And when you look at the types of people within the South Asian communities who are more at risk, we notice certain traits. And one of them is their body shape. Those people who are more apple-shaped, where they've got a lot of fat around the stomach or the abdomen, they are more at risk of something called insulin resistance, making you more resistant to your own insulin. And insulin is what controls your blood sugar in your blood, in your body. So if you're more rounded around the abdomen, around the tummy, this is called central obesity. And that makes you more at risk of type 2 diabetes and of heart disease. And when it comes to men, you should be, I've got a lovely tape measure here, which I recommend you get from the British Heart Foundation, because they give you the normal, what's normal? But the ideal sort of waist measurement. Then you're still doing well if you're in the green. This is underweight. This is the gray on whether you're a man or a woman. This side is for men, which is the yellow, which is you're overweight. Here you're overweight if you're a woman. And here in the red, for men it's here, for women it's here. Your waist circumference is too high and you are more at risk of conditions like type 2 diabetes and heart disease. And if you already have these conditions, you should aim to get from the red to the amber and ideally within the green, even if it's just about there. And those measurements are 31.5 inches for women and 36 inches for men. That is the waist measurement you want to aim for. So if we can, through diet and through physical activity, get our waist down to 31.5 for women or less, and 36 or less for men, and this is South Asian men measurements, then we are less likely to have these conditions, or at least have long-term complications, because we're managing our weight. So let's turn to food then. a lot of people say to me, I've got diabetes, I can't have sugar, that's it, end of my life, I love sugary foods. Well, there are different types of sugars. There are natural sugars, which we get from fruit or from sugars, which is a sugar you'll find in your kheer and your jalebi and your sugary sweetened drinks. And it's those sugars that we need to cut down on because of the effect that they have on our blood sugar. If you drink something really sugary, your blood glucose or your blood sugar goes up very quickly. It goes up very high as well, and it goes down very quickly. Think about it. When you're feeling a bit low, you might say, oh, I feel like having some chocolate. And what happens is you have this sweet food, your blood glucose goes up, you feel great here. You feel lively, you've had a lovely piece of chocolate, your concentration is good, but very quickly it goes down. And when it gets to this stage, you want another piece of chocolate. So what we want to be trying to aim for in diabetes, in pre-diabetes, and I would argue for all of us for general health, we need to aim for slow, steady rises in our blood glucose levels. So if you think of a breakfast, if you were to have cornflakes and milk, you'll find your blood glucose goes up quite quickly and it goes down quite quickly. So you'll feel fine, but that feeling of energy won't last that long. Whereas if you had something like porridge, or better still, porridge with some badam and some sliced banana, then your blood sugar will go up nice and slowly. It won't go as high, and it will go down slowly and steadily. And what that does is that gives you slow and steady rises and falls in your blood glucose or blood sugar level. And if you have diabetes, this is what you need to aim for. This is the crux of dietary management of diabetes, is finding a diet and lifestyle that gives you those lovely, slow, steady curves in blood sugar. This is called glycemic impact. You might have heard of glycemic index or GI. I've written some books on GI. If you look at asminanutrition.com, you will see those books. So what are the low GI foods within our cuisine? Well, we have them all the time. Lentils, all types of dal, mung dal, tur dal, all the dals you can think of, chana dal, beans, kidney beans, chickpeas, all of these beans, lentils, nuts, seeds, fruits, vegetables, and whole grains like the porridge oats or whole grain rice like brown basmati, these all gives you these slower, steady rises and falls in blood glucose. So those are the foods we need to concentrate on. And it's not just about blood glucose, because if you've got children, you'll find that if they have these lower GI foods, then their concentration throughout the day will be better. If you're someone who has a hectic lifestyle, eating these foods will give you sustained energy throughout the day, and it will help you to feel full for longer. So you're not going to be eating foods that are unhealthy for you. So try to have these low GI foods as much as you can. Now, often people say to me, okay, so that's my blood glucose, but what do I do when I've got a meal in front of me? How do I eat the right foods? What sort of foods, and how should I eat? Well, when I see my patients, and also in all of my books, actually, I recommend that we do this. This is a plate I take into my clinic. If you imagine your dinner plate is split into 4 quarters, and you have 4 quarters, one with veggie, one with veg, one with protein, and one with carbs. I call this veggie, protein, carbs. This is how I suggest you eat. Let's think it through. So one of your quarter veggies could be some salad. It could be some bindanusak, some karela, any sort of vegetable curry, cabbage curry, etc. This veg could be, if that was cabbage curry, this could be some salad, or this could be a piece of fruit that you're going to have after your meal. It would still mentally sort of fit into that quarter. Then what about the protein? Well, if you're vegetarian or vegan, then this is where your dals, your beans, your tofu, nuts, paneer, those sorts of foods would fill about that amount. I just want to say a little bit about paneer, because a lot of people say to me, well, paneer is low in fat. It's actually not. It's a full fat cheese. And when we're thinking about full fat dairy products, they are higher in what we call saturated fat. Too much saturated fat can make your blood cholesterol go up. And we know that if you have a high cholesterol, you're more likely to get heart disease. And some of you here may be on statins, so you already have a raised cholesterol. So paneer would not be the best food for you. But if we stick with this, that's where all your dals and beans go. That's your proteins. And then this C is for your carbs. So that's where you want to be having your potato, batata, atta for your roti, your choka, all the rice, potatoes, grains would go here, but try your best to have whole grains. So when you're having rice, try brown basmati rice. If you're having roti, go for coarse wholemeal atta. If you're having potatoes, keep the skin on potatoes, because all these high fiber varieties help your blood sugar to go up nice and slowly, and they will also help to fill you up. Now, a lot of people say to me, Bas etlu, just that much carb? What about my potatoes and my rotli and my rice, which I might have in one meal? Because I might have potato curry and rotli, and then I might have dal and rice as well. That's a lot of carb. So remember this plate, and you can download this graphic from my website, actually. Again, it's azminanutrition.com. If you go on there and go onto the Vegan Savvy page, Vegan Savvy I'll talk about later, then you can see this graphic, and you can download it and put it onto your fridge. So it will remind you that if you're having potatoes, think about, can I have less of the carb and add some more veg? So maybe put some mutter in there, put some sweet corn in there, put some any veg in there. That's going to make you eat less of the potato and more of the veg. Now, that's not to say potatoes aren't good for us. I've never, ever said that. They're actually a good source of vitamin C in the winter for us in the UK. Sorry, there's still someone with their microphone on. If we could please switch them off as a host, that would be great. Thank you. So it doesn't mean don't eat these foods. It just means control the amount. And usually it's about the amount you can fit into one fist, that sort of amount, which is about this. So when you sit down to your meal, let's think about what would those components consist of. Well, the veggies are great because they count towards your 5 a day. So have as many different colors, because the colors of vegetables give you different nutrients. So lots of different colors, lots of different types of plants, because we know that the more diverse the range of plants you eat, the better for your gut bacteria. And you may know that we have friendly bacteria in our gut, and 70% of our immune system is in our gut. So those bacteria that live there, these friendly or good bacteria, are there to fight off infections, such as COVID and such as other infections. So it's really important, particularly at this time, for us to think about our gut bacteria and improvement of those microbes that inhabit our gut. And one great way of doing that is to eat a diverse range of plant foods. So rather than always having your standard dar bhat, one curry rotli, and it's just, changing up a little bit, try to have diverse types of vegetables. When you go shopping next, think about, okay, that purple brinjal, right, I'm going to have that. And then I'm going to have the green courgette as well. And then I'm going to put some yellow peppers in there. And of course, red tomatoes if I want to make certain curries. So think about the different types. And over a week, try to have 30 different types of plant foods if you can. And that will be good for your gut bacteria. So they also contribute towards your 5 a day. As you know, the government recommends we should have at least 5 fruit and veg a day. And that's because they act as powerful antioxidants. So antioxidants are important for reducing our risks of inflammatory conditions like diabetes, heart disease, strokes, arthritis. So having those fruits and vegetables is important for all of us for our general health. So that's the veggie. Let's look at the proteins. Now, if you're a meat eater, then try to choose lean proteins. So, make sure that when you go to the butcher, get lean cuts of meat. And if you were having meat, you want to think about the portion size that is around the palm of your hand and around the thickness of your palm. So a man has a bigger palm, a child has a smaller one, and that gives you an indication of how much protein from that meat, chicken, fish, would be useful. However, I think most of us here don't eat meat. And so when you're thinking of that protein, I'm going to share with you how best to find that protein. When I was writing my book, which has just come out recently, called Vegan Savvy, this is the Expert's Guide to Nutrition on a Plant-Based Diet. And I interviewed lots of people who were eating plant foods. And so therefore, I've got lots of ideas, lots of different ways of looking at how you're eating and very simple ways to understand nutrition when you're eating plant-based foods. And when you're thinking about your protein, and in here, in fact, I think even on my website, I might have examples of foods that give you 5 grams of protein. And at each meal, we should be having, let's say, 20 to 30 grams of protein at a meal, depending on your stage of life. So eating enough protein at every meal is really important. And make sure they are lean proteins. And therefore, when we're cooking our dal and our different vegetable curries, the word lean means lower in fat. So we need to think about what sort of fats we are adding. Now, a lot of people come to me and say, oh, we've switched to coconut oil. We've seen the adverts, we've heard them on the radio, and coconut oil's got no cholesterol in it. So that's the one I use. Well, none of the oils have cholesterol in them. And the dietary cholesterol in food, has very little impact on your blood cholesterol. So we want to be thinking about all the fats that we eat, but particularly those, as I said a little while ago, you may remember, those that are high in saturated fats, because it's the saturated fats that increase our blood cholesterol. And we need to be really aware of this, because if you have diabetes, you are more at risk of heart disease. Already being Asian, we're more at risk of heart disease. If you're a South Asian man, you're already more at risk. So we can't do anything about those things, but we can control our cholesterol by what we eat and our lifestyle. And coming back to the coconut fat that everybody seems to think is so wonderful, coconut fat has more saturated fat than butter. And you know that butter is considered not good for us, too much of it, because of its effect on your blood cholesterol. Ghee also has more saturated fat than butter. So the types of oils I recommend you use are either rapeseed oil or olive oil, or polyunsaturates, which are like corn oil, sunflower oil, groundnut oil. And the reason why I particularly recommend rapeseed oil is that in people who are vegetarian or vegan, sometimes quite hard to get your omega-3 because the richest source of omega-3 is in fish. Rapeseed oil has around 10 times the omega-3 of olive oil. So I usually recommend rapeseed oil. It's much cheaper than olive oil, very widely available in the supermarket. Just look at the label. You'll usually see it called vegetable oil. Turn the bottle over, read the small print, and it should say 100% rapeseed oil. And it works really well in our cuisine because it doesn't really have the richness or the aroma of olive oil. So that's your proteins that we were talking about. And lastly, those carbs. Those carbs are what are going to affect your blood glucose level. And it's those whole grain, high fiber, whole carbs that are better for you than the ones that go straight into your bloodstream. So white rice does that. White bread. Brown rice, slow and steady. Whole grain atta, slow and steady. Granary bread, not wholemeal, granary or seeded bread, slow and steady. And I can go into that a little bit more detail if anyone wants to ask questions on that. But those are the things we have to try to eat more of when we are doing our VVPC.
You cheeky.
Can we switch off all the mics? Sorry, really sorry about that. The other thing about when we are eating plant-based foods is we need to make sure we're absorbing them appropriately. Now, carrots, as an example, they're a source of vitamin A. And you might think, let me have a raw carrot and, that's really good because it's good for my vision, it's good for my skin, and it's good for my immunity, vitamin A. But actually, research is showing that a raw carrot doesn't give you as much vitamin A as if you cooked it.
In the left-hand side, Mark.
And this is what we call nutrient bridges. And in the book, in the Vegan Savvy book, I've developed a new concept called nutrient bridges. These are ways to improve or enhance what we're eating so we get more of those nutrients. And when people are on vegetarian diets, there are certain nutrients that we may be low in. So when you eat your carrots, what I recommend you do is use this nutrient bridge. And you'll see that in the book, and even on Instagram, I'm on @Azmina Nutrition if you want to see some more nutrient bridges there. If you stir fry your carrots, so you need to add some oil and you need to process, if you like, by cooking those carrots. Research suggests that you will get 6.5 times more vitamin A than if you were to have the carrots raw. So that's quite interesting, isn't it? Because we always think raw food is better for us, but not necessarily the case. And when it comes to carrots, tomatoes, peppers that have beta carotene, so those orangey ones, you're better off cooking them. And that's why canned tomatoes are a good idea, because they are already cooked and processed. They will give you more of some of the antioxidants, such as lycopene, which has been linked to reduction in risk of cancer, as well as the vitamin A, the carotenoids that we talk about. Another nutrient bridge is, often a lot of people will have a cup of tea with their meal. Now, if you're having a vegetarian meal that's got some iron in it, let's say a spinach curry or a kidney bean curry or mung dal, they all have iron in them. The tea is going to inhibit the absorption of the iron. Basically, drinking tea with your magnusak or your spinach curry is going to have a chemical reaction with the iron in the spinach or the mug so that your body cannot make enough use of the iron that is in the spinach or the mug. So my advice to you, especially if you're vegetarian, but even if you're not, with any vegan or vegetarian meal, I would suggest you avoid drinking tea so that you make the most of the iron. And one of my nutrient bridges is to have a small glass of orange juice or some lemon juice drizzled onto your food, or a side salad with that meal instead of the tea. And that's because the salad, the orange juice, the lemon juice drizzled on, they're all sources of vitamin C. And vitamin C enhances the absorption of iron from those plant-based foods. So really interesting to think about all these nutrient bridges, especially for growing children. You want to make sure that children have a wide variety of these nutritious foods, and that if they are eating the way that I'm speaking to you about regarding foods that give you a slow, steady rise in blood glucose, it's really far more beneficial for them than having the sugary drinks and the white rice and the white bread, which is actually not going to give them the best start in life. And when you think of children, the other nutrient to be very careful of is calcium, because in fact, it's for all of us, because you're not sitting on the same bones you were about 5 to 7 years ago. And that's because bones are constantly being broken down and built up. And this happens at its fastest up until about the age of 35. So until the age of 35, we need to be really especially careful of getting enough calcium and enough vitamin D. And the vitamin D is another nutrient bridge, if you like, because vitamin D is needed for you to absorb, for your body to make use of the calcium. Now, there's not much vitamin D in food, unfortunately. You get it from sunshine, and a bit variable at the moment, the British sunshine. So I recommend all of you take a vitamin D supplement. Especially in the winter, but if you're housebound, if you're not getting out into the sunshine, then also in the summer. The government recommends 10 micrograms of vitamin D a day, but I would suggest that if you feel your immunity is low or you are concerned because the fact that we have dark skin means we are not manufacturing enough vitamin D in the sunshine. Actually, I didn't say clearly. We make vitamin D when we go out into the sun. Our bodies make it, which is fantastic. So when you go out into the sun, make sure you are exposing as much of your skin. Roll up your sleeves, put your arm out of an open window if you're not going out. Make sure you have the action of those ultraviolet B rays on your skin in order to make vitamin D, which helps you to absorb the calcium, particularly important if you are housebound. And you can ask your GP for these supplements or a blood test, which is very easy and also cheap. And the reason why vitamin D is such an important nutrient is not just bones. It's actually been linked to so much: reduction in risk of diabetes, heart disease, management of diabetes, immunity. So many emerging research studies are showing how important vitamin D is. So we've talked a lot about making sure we're eating foods that give you these slow, steady rises in blood glucose. We've talked about the fact that we need to watch our intake of saturated fat from full fat dairy products, from fatty meat. And we need to therefore cut down on things like butter, ghee, cream, paneer, and coconut fat, and instead have rapeseed oil or olive oil or corn oil or sunflower oil. We've talked about fiber and how we need to make sure we're having the skin on the potatoes, the whole grain atta, the brown rice, because fiber is needed not only for those slow, steady rises, it also helps to fill you up. So great if you're watching your weight, and weight is something that's really important for us in type 2 diabetes. Remember the waist measurement. So make sure you're having enough fiber. Whoops. And fiber is also important for healthy digestion and relief of constipation. So we talked about the fiber, the fats, the carbohydrate, as in not having too many sugary drinks and having whole grains, and the proteins, having lots of good quality proteins like beans, lentils, tofu, nuts, and seeds. So if you try and put all that together, and if we were to think about what that might do for us, it might help you manage your weight, help you manage and control and be in control of your diabetes. It'll help you instill great eating habits within your family, and I would argue within our communities. Imagine if we were to support each other. Imagine if we were all to do this. And it would be better for our blood cholesterol and our risks of heart disease and other important conditions. And when you think about our culture and our community, I think, as I said in the beginning, I wanted to talk a little bit about this. I think there is so much richness in the love, the care, the hospitality that South Asian communities engender. If a guest comes home, we are so hospitable. There's chevra, there's gamcha, there's puris, there's samosas, and we want them to eat. Think of all those foods. They're all high in fat and calories. They're not going to do this at all. They're going to probably do this. And is this how we want to improve the health of our future generations and our families and our friends? Maybe we need to consider changing our mindset and our thinking a little bit about food. And it's fine to be hospitable, but could we be hospitable with healthier foods? Could we have some badams? Could we have some popcorn? Could we have some whole grain crackers? There are other foods that we can offer. And when we're sitting at the table, I can remember my ma, she used to just put food on my plate, ka beta ka. And I'd be like, whoa, and it's hard to say no, isn't it? We are a culture of love and politeness and gratitude and humility. It's very hard to say no. But maybe we need to think about why saying no sometimes is actually of benefit to everyone in the room. And if we were all able to make these little changes and practice saying no and share our experiences of how much better we feel when we are eating better, when we are exercising more, then that's going to definitely help our future generations and our wider community. Let us be the champions and actually control. We are in control of diabetes, of our future, of our long-term health. Let's do it together. Eat well, move more, and share your wonderful tips. Thank you.